Hi YouTube. Today I'm going to be collecting the messages for a lot of the connections that I've been looking at in the charts of astrology by using the Venetian tarot deck as well as the Alice in Wonderland tarot deck to get you guys like in touch with just like who I'm going to be talking about in the conversation. We currently have some aspects of like the planets that are just like unique in experience and something that we haven't had in a few years. Currently, being the fact that we have Jupiter in a fire sign that is currently sextiled with the sign in Aquarius. And I feel like there's just this um no, I can't like oh my gosh. I'm going to be experimental with the spreads that I'm doing today to like just use the scientific method, see what works, what doesn't, and consider my options as far as like what card layouts are made available to me, because I don't do what is considered like wellness tarot or um like party tarot, or like or like, so there's not a lot of spreads where it's like like how's my career going to jumpstart itself, and like um how are the relationships going to be in that environment, and like how am I supposed to balance my family life in the meantime. Like, I think those aspects of tarot are interesting. um I like to use tarot as a way to provoke conversation that we get to use like a physical medium with, that is almost like in a way communicating with a grounded energy that allows us to center with a message that can be consistent, you know? And so what I do and what I look for when I make a spread is like currently right now, just as it goes, is um I like to ask questions in for the context of specific timelines, and like that's just my shtick. So we're probably gonna end up diving into a lot of content that is related to the current transits and what is it called? I forget. But like when a specific planet like transits into a new sign, like there's a specific word for that. I think it starts with an S. Um, but I do like degree theory, and like the foundations of my current ability when it comes to degrees are the numerological aspects of it and the sign that it's associated with. Like, and that's mostly where I stop myself. Like, I don't go into the deacons, but those are like relatively important as far as like where you think the relevance of how something is manifesting in your pattern of behavior. I think it's something that you can look into and correspond to, that allows you to just decide like whether or not this is a thing that is reflecting in your environment or not, like, and go from there. And um if it's not something that you seem to identify with, years later you could find a small tidbit where it is relevant. But like you understand that it's not an identifier for your personality just because you were born at a specific time. It's like you're aware of this facet of existence and way of living that you may or may not have been um that may or may not have been revealed to you otherwise. Like, like people act a certain way and I didn't learn about it like until just now. Okay, the cards are done shuffling. The sextile of Jupiter and um the sun in Aquarius just maintain like a lot of stability for each other. Okay, this is unfortunate. They're all in reversed. I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. This is a brand new deck that I opened. I think that's so weird. They're all in reverse. I guess that's just how I shuffled it. That never happens. So that's cool. Um, the deck stayed the same. Okay, so I have my sextile for Aquarius. I have my sextile for Jupiter. Jupiter is currently 4 degrees in Aries, which in numerology corresponding to the behavior of Aries, like we're dealing with a Cancerian um, behavior where we're remaining like kind of impartial to a commitment and we're being indecisive about our behavior. Um, so this is currently like a timestamp of just the mental pattern of what's being recorded today. So if you find this in the future, we can make correlations to like how to exist and like think back on this time. I just sense like, yeah, I'm not gonna name it. I'm gonna use the Venetian tarot to associate us with Aquarius and Venus in its conjunction to Saturn at 24 degrees. Just as clarifiers to give us some more like solid depiction of where Venus is going and like I know it's kind of obnoxious to think about, but like Venus orbits the sun, but its rotation it orbits the sun the same direction Earth does, but its spin is the opposite direction. So the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, and like the way it deals with what you would consider astrology from Venus's aspects, like it experiences things um backwards and like um let's see. Uh yeah, like so all of the celestial bodies like to rise from the western hemisphere and set in the eastern one. I mean, because it's like you have to think about like the way the chart works and where you need to stand to position yourself in correlation to like the celestial bodies. It's like, yeah, if you grew up like thinking about like where the directions were like on a compass and um, like how to find um, wow, I forgot the word for this. Because I just know them by their name now. I don't think of them as a cluster of stars. I'm not part of that timeline. Like, it's kind of like taboo, but I'm not stepped into that. I feel like that word is just like, it's so common that it isn't. I've chosen not to like familiarize my soul with it and depend on it, like, so I don't lead myself by it in a way. Like, yeah. What are they called? Constellations. Yes, I had to think of Orion to remember that. Yeah, and that's not really revealing of much. Unfortunately. Yeah, no doxing. Okay? Don't dox me. Um, but we're dealing with the. Okay, I'm gonna combine these two because they're supposed to be connected. Like, a sextile is supposed to refer to the um, complementary vertex of like the positioning of the planets, and um, time is a relevant facet of this conversation because when you're dealing with a sextile, you have positioning of planets that are recently correlated to each other. Like, Jupiter is in Aries, which is ahead of the sun that came into Aries. Or not Aries, Aquarius. Their beginning stages into this season is something Jupiter has gone through recently. So it's like the sextile is just a way for the message that like revealed itself during that time to remain relevant. And there's kind of like an apex moment where there's a there's a climactic theme that occurs when the numbers correlate to each other. Um, and you can get into more degree theory if you want, like, to further like your own personal research. All of the cards did end up coming in reverse. Like, that's just how this came through and how I shuffled the deck. Um, Now, honestly, like, yeah, I'm not gonna bother your imagination with the fact that I just talked about how Venus is reversed rotation comparison to Earth's, like, but I guess we get to have that like imaginative part of this conversation. And more or less, um to feel out the room. Now, wow, okay, I don't know how I want to relate to these cards yet. So I'm going to leave them there. Oh, it's the Three of Cups? No. Woohoo! Sorry. Um, that would be cute, but no, I don't think I'm going to do that. But to get started, Temperance has come in reverse for Jupiter. I feel like because we're in Aries and it has the cardinal energy, like, we're relying on the intuition of our um, desires to formulate like the carrying out of what we wish to see in the world, like with our dreams. Cut and dry, like, aspect for what Jupiter represents. Um, at a Cancerian degree, like, there's a lot of cardinal energy that Jupiter is dealing with right now. And with so many aspects to Aquarius occurring at the moment, um, uh, let's find a card for Saturn, who is in Aquarius. Um, okay. Firstly, we have the Queen of Wands, who's come up. Um, I'm like, yeah. I like to rely on imagery when I look at the cards, like just to get a sense of what I'm inspired by, and who is representative of like the nature of the artist at play here. Um, I'm considering the fact that this like animalistic nature, like I'm getting a sense that this Queen of Wands is dealing with an animal that is not stubborn but remains independent and like knows that it has like a compassionate leader um by their side that they trust. Like they're not scared by the Queen of Wands like in this picture. The Beast of Primal Nature here is I didn't get the book that comes with the deck. Um so I may have gotten an email that has it. I'll have to look that up. Now, like, she is carrying a torch, and like, it's just indicative of it being a wand. I don't want to give too much allegory or metaphor into like what the wand and scepter she's carrying means. Cause it's like, yeah. Um, there's a lot of okay. I already touched on that part, so we don't have to go into it further. But we're dealing with someone who has like somebody who's in touch with their like survival instincts and like conveniently like there is just this opportunity to remember um the compassion that the leader has in this circumstance, because this person trusts us like um in the story. Now temperance being in reverse to describe like Jupiter's aspect, um I think there are things in our past that would make us more intimidating in the process, like just as somebody who would gather more of their light and presence, like to communicate more. But I think this aggression with the fact that it's in reverse, this is okay, Venus energy. Like, I need to stop considering that. Like, Venus is at 24 degrees in Aquarius. Um, I think the Queen of Wands, like, because you're surrounded by people that already trust you, um, there's no need to embolden yourself into any like sort of behavior, attitude, or like characteristic. Like remembering a title from your past and like attaining it and giving it to people like in your introductions. Like I don't think you have to like take the initiative to overcome those things. Um, and we kind of know that already. Like um, I'm just getting a sense like you have past experiences, but there's no need to pull them out of your toolbox, of your tool shed. Um, yes, the positioning is good at the moment. Um, now dealing with like the number four, there's a lot of swaying. Like, four is a very, like, it's considered an unlucky number. It is unlucky in from my perspective because it's not a solid foundational number. Like, because I just describe it as a number that sways between positions and parties. Like, it's unpredictable, doesn't like to um like commit to the group. um it's kind of like a lone wolf in a way, like um but it likes to, yeah, yeah, no, that's all I'm gonna say about 4 degree Jupiterian energy. Like, with our dreams, there's just, we feel like we're caught in the limelight and it's kind of being used against you. Not to anyone specifically. Like I say, I talk about the general time that the story is participating in. Um, and so it's just like I could be describing just like a part of this world that is relevant to the stars. And this person is dealing with a relationship with their self image that has kind of gotten away from their control. Um, okay. Wait, flowers. Okay. Um, yeah. So Jupiter, like, has a lot of dreams and ideas for this. Could even be Jupiter as well. Like, Jupiter is such a beloved aspect of astrology that we all consider to be precious. Um, and like, we're it's easy for us to be overwhelmed by the beauty that is cast in its memory. But like, there are a lot of like, with the page of flowers coming through, talking about like just the aspects that our personality is considered to be infectious, like of an infectious nature. People latch on to you. You're socially um, in the descriptor of this card, like part of the gossip. Like, you have a lot of ideas and dreams that are influential to the conversation, that spark the imagination, that is familiar already to the people involved. With the Seven of Cups, like Seven of Teacups, Jupiter's having like Jupiter going in circles, like considering the fact that um, a lot of what has been established already has had many conversations held. And the light is just so well received and almost powers itself, that the conversation is able to dominate what's happening while still remaining to what's precious and what's seemingly joyful. Um, it doesn't. It's not like there's anything new in the room. Like we're getting 10 of Spears. The Sun wanted to talk. Now the 10 of Spears connecting with our Venus energy. I'm gonna pull for Venus now. Oh, the card just wanted to come out. This deck likes poppers. I don't think I'm going to limit the deck to just being a pull and receive. Like it's for all all possibility. Now this is the King of Swords. Wow. In context to the 10 of Spears, there is an authority here that is considering taking the wheel to incite um uh that's not what I want to say. To demonstrate the ability to relax and um demonstrate slothful behavior that is healthy and manageable. The Sun doesn't want to, and now the Sun is a very large character in this story. Like I can't talk to it entirely. Um, I just consider the fact that we need to reconsider how much time we have available to us and how quickly we choose to decide our our deadlines. Um, that's kind of what the energy of this is making me think about. Now, this is really making me think about, okay. The Sun is currently 2 degrees in Aquarius, and our Strength card, coming through, from the Alice deck, I haven't read the artist's description for how, to perceive the card. I go off my intuition currently. It's considerate of the environment that is a part of this dandelion's existence. Um, it is alone. Now we don't see any of the other flowers that may belong to the garden bed, but currently right now it looks to appear alone. And I feel like it knows the environment well enough to be able to consider the options that it needs to have. Um, I feel like there's a lot of gravity, like, in the process here. The anticipation, because this is all correlating to the Sun in the sextile. The complementary energy that like we're tapping into with this conversation that I've been linked into is the association of the energy of competition, and the gravity is you have inside information on the thing you're bickering with. um and okay, the Five of Teacups comes through. This is what's connecting the sextile from the conversation that we're having with this medium. Um, the Five of Teacups gets us to recollect on some past. I don't know why trauma is the first word that my mind tripped up over, but um, there are some memories that. Now this isn't the moon card. We don't have anything relating to the moon, um, other than the world being here, which I haven't pulled out yet. But with the Five of Cups being what is. Oh, I understand what's going on. Okay. Like, our consideration of our aspect to the sun is that it feels a connection to be inspired by the parental opportunity that is set before it. Like, if it's going to continue to be the thing that, like, allows us to continue to orbit and, um, be forced with our psychic consciousness as earthly beings who are very noisy, um, considering our size in the comparison to the size of the sun. Um, it's like, oh, I don't want to get super cheeky, but the world is here, so I'm fine with it. Um, we're seeing that the sun is considering the fact that Earth and Jupiter has a better relationship just because they're more similar to each other. Um, even though there's one's a solid planet and one's a gaseous planet, like they're of similar size in comparison to the sun, and Jupiter just provides so much access to imaginative freedom that isn't related to where the sun holds itself. Because even though the sun is made of gas, there's so much pressure from that planet alone that it's very hard to empathically resonate with that amount of pressure. It's you can't cause a lot of movement. You can't like the sun is more likely, if it changes, to move you than to do the other way around. And if you can tap into it and a fraction of a percentage, you're at least making a connection to the universe that you're a part of. And I feel like that is a relevant aspect of our conscious mind and imagination that we get to have together. Um, and yeah. What's tough is I think our sun is I know we talked about envy, but there's also some disappointment just with the need to control things that the earth continues to exhibit. Because us coming from this planet, being of its matter, like, we want to control outcomes so badly that we're willing to make decisions that compromise our behavior and make investments in spirit that just affect the overall mood. I'm sorry, I have to be such a Cancer, but I have a Pisces Saturn, and I can tell when like you're taking an emotion too far because like you want to reap the outcome of what that emotion provides. Like this, like I'm thinking about like satisfaction um as an opportunity um just to feel like a period of rest. There are people who are on your side, like, and the sun is kind of like questioning our behavior at the moment. Um, like the strength card coming through for the sun, like talking about how like it doesn't recognize the space that it's in, but like has to literally like growl and operate fiercely to like instill and maintain its like um safety, like um yeah, that's kind of like where we're seeing this because like earth is buzzing and humming, but like I mean we've done some cool things and there are like some things in the works and like but in the lives of like 7, I think 8 billion people now, like the effect of our everyday lives, like you have to consider the mundanity like of where our decisions lead us, like a cycle that continues to repeat itself with different names and um, just like stories of tragedy and victory and like the overtaking of like good versus evil kind of thing, like I'm not picking up on a lot of like what's morally gray in the conversation. I do have the Eight of Pentacles from our sun, and I feel like this is advice for the future that we get to remedy ourselves with. Forgetting this, like it literally looks like it's contradicting the conversation. Like we're being encouraged to continue the production and work, like not to stop and put ourselves in idle. I just think, yeah, the sun like is choosing to remain impartial here. The sun is not a very emotional planet. Again, there's so much pressure involved that it's not like a very viscous existence. Like that's why I mean I believe that's why solar flares happen and that's why those storms are so like dangerous is because all that pressure suddenly you have this heat wave that comes out of it and stretches across the solar system. Um, so it's not a very emotional planet. Um, sorry, it's not a by scientific terms, it's not a planet. But in astrology, the history of the matter, like it is a planet, called a luminary. Now, our message from beyond our landscape, and like I'm receiving alien like messages like in my conscious right now. I don't think it's like the moon here. Like, I don't think it's my emotions wanting to talk about aliens and that's why it's surfacing. Like, I'm getting like the fact that it's like we have our chart of astrology in the center, the sextile agreement, and what's happening outside of it. And like, so this is like context that is outside of our POV. that I'm gonna have to do the best that I can to remain impartial to the conversation. Um, and it's honestly probably good for me to do that just in practice. Like, to be able to talk about our solar system with a um, ability to talk about like different outcomes for it. So the world being in reversed. Um, Now, okay. So, lots to consider. Okay, so we had the Eight of Hedgehogs, confirming the fact that the sun wants us to not feel deterred in in like enlightenment. Um, it's gonna be hard work. Like science and philosophy have got to merge, like for that to happen. Um, and the outside perspective is just the fact that it's like there's so many roots that have been like made, so many roots that have grown in facets of the industry that like we get to take a moment and celebrate like those people who maintain it, but also understand that change is going to be um, like something that needs to be ordinary. I feel like there's so much pressure put on the fact that like you want to maintain an image of the life that it was like something was founded on, that you start to like overcompensate yourself to the point where you overshadow the room. And it's suddenly like we're doing it to serve face and not like actual, ability or um social relevance. Like I'm gonna get into sociology like a lot, and you're gonna find that like like the more you disconnect yourself from society, like, and just because I'm coming at this from such an American point of view, you're gonna be limited to like having a conversation with me where you have to deal with the fact that this hermit is in reversed. Like I feel like the sun is so upset about this facet of our lives where we're constantly forcing ourselves into these spaces to satisfy like a political behavior. And there's a lot of exclusionary facets to this that like remain to be impartial and also revoked. Like the connection between the two sextiles here, the Five of Cups, and there's just this regret, but also this like forgetfulness as to like the message that seemed to be like a message that seemed to be like spoken and heard by everyone. and suddenly you go back into this hermit mode, which the sun is kind of like upset because it keeps hearing that Earth is doing this. Like, yeah, the sun's not upset. It's not emotional. It just matter can hear itself. Like, I don't doubt it. Um, and like, I don't know. It just to give you like an example in nature that this kind of like relates to is imagine Earth as like a sea anemone, and then like the human conscious and psyche are like clownfish, and like you continue to see people like socializing amongst like themselves like within these anemones that they've like brushed themselves like and gotten familiar with and learned the ins and outs of being able to be around like these certain like types of people, and then they pop out and like show themselves to the sea, and then they like get frightened, and um there could be some innocence here that like gets to be relevant, that like um honorably like we'll consider as an association on the occasion. um the the Four of Pentacles. Ooh, I love the use and portrayal of a hawk in this card. I feel like it's just like, oh, I'm gonna have to read the book for that. But the Four of Pentacles here is like, okay, where was this supposed to go? Okay. Um, there's this obsession to keep what you've maintained for yourself that, wow, I'm talking to Earth, sorry. From an outside perspective, don't mind me. Look at me. I built this castle for myself. Um, your like current state, like the relationship that the sun is perceiving Earth as the clownfish, is to maintain what is sacred and meant to be protected for the involvement of people that you care about. And um there's just like there's no regret for what you've proven yourself to be able to do. You get to have access to the attainment of the things that like have become, because the Seven of Pentacles like is supporting us in the conversation like from outside the universe. Like we have like Seven of Pentacles talks about the embarking upon new trials, and I know like the Six of Pentacles is always associated with new beginnings, but the Seven of Pentacles is about like the new steps into a committed aspect of an outlet, like an outlet or a form of release that is available through like material needs and financial gain. So we're relating to the Seven of Hedgehogs in our like need to be self-aware over like our accomplishments in allowing ourselves to feel satisfaction for the fact that we've made it this far. Like um dealing with that Venus, like um oh, I can't talk about this card too much because I don't know it. Like four of like I know the Four of Pentacles, but I this context is so abstract that like I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to ruin the artist's like vision. I know, like so much pressure. Um, it's crazy. Um, so now our world is larger than like what our solar system can be considered as, um, and what I mean by that is like yeah, we're particular to this quadrant and it pertains to us, and like we have the ability to remember the fact that like space is always growing and pushing outward into parts of like space that have yet to be discovered, and like we're part of that world. We just think we're the center of it. Well, all things came from a singularity, but it's like, yeah, but we're definitely far away from where our buddy was, like back in where we came from. Now the world, like aspected with the Nine of Wands, such a beautiful card. Um, woo! I just feel like Earth, you're sitting on a pile of gold. Like, um, reconsider the fact that like, ooh, I don't like what the spirit's telling me, but it looks like this king is late to the conversation. Because the king was supposed to be an example and demonstrate how we're supposed to like mediate this in conversation. The Ten of Spears maintaining the fact that you're supposed to take time and lay out like the remembrance of who was involved in a particular project, provide growth opportunity for your peers and not chain them into a process of, sorry, that's, pardon my language, the arrogance of like just the forgetfulness that I walk into sometimes. Um, but getting like forcing contractual agreements, and right now with the like, yeah, I think it's just something that's a familiar behavior in our part of the world that like you're kind of limited to how far you can branch out in an industry because like there's a lot of monopolized like influences and um, competition, as well as just like the inability to create a new vision and culture for yourself that like can be found easily by people who need it. And our lack of this fact that we don't allow people the artistic freedom to wander and collaborate on projects, like we need someone to take responsibility and take initiative. We have people who do that already in minor ways, but our unprecedented charitable like philanthropy, essentially like because it's such a big move that hasn't been done yet. Like, I'm thinking about the first millionaire that like decreased his salary, and like all the other bigwig in his community got the same like treatment where they were reduced to a $75,000 a year income. Like that, I consider to be a philanthropic achievement, and like an unprecedented thing that like we don't see often. But as an example for an ability to create something that can move into a more diverse workplace that people can find themselves in. We have the ability to do that. We just need to trust the fact that like, uh, is it just like so easy to go under? Like, is that something I'm missing? Um, this card is making me think about the Tower, and I feel like the Nine of Wands just relies on. Oh, I'm seeing what it is. It's like, okay, the asset of a particular um, project account. Um, what is it that lawyers use? Like, uh, it's not like a presentation, but it's literally like a ugh, it's not a case because that's like what detectives do. But yeah, it's like the general asset and value, like the value of a company can become inflated and pop. So I guess that can be something that to be considered dangerous in the conversation here. And Jupiter wants us to Jupiter, like considering where we are, especially at 4 degrees in Aries, like remembering what we talked about in the beginning, where it's like we have these established functional roles in our lives that get to be maintained and interesting enough to still provoke imagination to begin something new. But the advice for the general like aid of our solar system is just to remember like how inflation can lead to recession, and it's just like it there's just upheaval that occurs in the because then like this is what happens when you're in a place that you're not able to trust the environment in. Like there's not a lot of support from your surrounding like competitors. And right now, Earth is in this like, well, specifically America is still in this state where right now, like, and I don't want to commit to the fact that this is a necessary thing that the market has to do. Like, we're running to a corner where we have the top businesses in the certain industries trying to stretch across the map and maintain superiority in how relevant they are in the customer's daily life and commute to the things that they do. Um, Whether it be like the service industry or the grocery industry, the like gas industry. I'll refer to it as like energy, but yeah, like we have all these giants that are trying to literally just it's like manifest destiny like all over again, but on small corporate scales. Like they're that was like a water droplet, like sorry, like um Uh, a teardrop. Um, uh, yeah, like the media's already done this. Like, we already have media that stretches across the country and has like a corresponding, like, we have news channels that cover the weather for the entirety of the region and like of North America, the United States, specifically. Um, so like they've already accomplished this, and like their industry is almost less cutthroat than some of the service industries that I've come from. Um, because like there's so much pressure to expand. And that's Jupiterian. Like, Jupiterian wants us to expand. But what's so special about this transit and why I want to voice it is just like Aries doesn't want you to become a literal airhead and think about the like five-dimensional chess game that you're a part of, and like think about where your company is going to be in the future when you're not there, and like forget about even your own life, like kind of existence. And like Aries wants you to literally like be in the world that you see, and like not forget the little things in the process. Like, yeah. Um so we get to relate to that, like from Jupiter. The gravity of the situation that Jupiter embarks upon is the fact that like the imagination is bigger than the consciousness that the earth houses. You're living in a reality where the imagination exists outside of our physical body and identifier. So you get to experience like living with fifth dimensional beings that can see life in a different color than you can, and have access to pools of time that don't seem to exist, that remain as like a resource and um, a well of um, just nourishment for the soul that they're a part of. These are your guides, these are your higher selves. Like, you all are aware of these things in the higher dimensions. If we're aware of it already, like we can make associations with um, things we choose to affiliate ourselves with. But Jupiter wants us to know, like, the imagination is considering more than what you determine to be relevant in your life right now. Like, and they're making deals like without us, and like we're in the room but we just aren't aware of it. Um so that's just how the imagination works. Like, I I truly believe that like our universe, particularly found in the multiverse, has a finite experience that maintains enough mystery to be able to function as a wavelength. Ultimately, um, I don't think you can make adjustments to the world based off of your wavelength, but I feel like the closer you are to an associated um, pattern of manifestation, particularly with how the mind and the heart works, like we're literally dealt with like the fact that like I know it's crazy. Like, I don't want to get too sciency because it's like we have glands that release like hormones that like give off the perfume. Like, but then it's like I don't. I feel like if that were true, we'd already like have the science to see the stimulation occur and find the like tension that's been released in the emotion that's expressed. It's like I feel like we have this language already, and it's an expression of like matter that is fifth dimensional. I think personally, I think like our feelings are caught up and associated with memories from the past, and are indicative of like our desires and hopes for the future, and like the way that we feel about our present situation, and like how all of that relates to each other. um so like whether it's just the spirit of our lives that gets to express itself and not be observed by anything, or if it's literally just like matter that has learned how to hallucinate. I think that those are both interesting conversations that like I'm gonna continue to explore. I want to say though that like the imagination exists outside of us, um, and like we're just like we're born into it. Um, yep, yep. I think that's how it works. Um, Now, I had no further comments on the status of the cards that were laid out before us. I kind of touched on everything. I gave some like ways that I felt about like how our solar system works and how the matter of consciousness is able to be bartered with. Ultimately, that's how I look at it. Like, I don't think. I think, okay, it's weird. Like, I think that like matter can have memory and it remembers like the minor changes that affect itself and the imagination when there's an aspect of control that has taken place. Very wild stuff, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to voice, like, um, but there are more important conversations to be had than to imagine what it's like to barter certain rocks on Venus with the soul and like assert value onto it's like wow, with the deity that I'm associated with and like the creative lengths that people are willing to go to contribute to the longevity of a memory that they wish to maintain itself in the imagination. Like, is the soul wants to tie its create a tether to maintain an outcome that might end up like being a bane for other people, because like this is an aspect of control where it's like they're trying to take up more space in the imagination at the behest of other people. And that's where I have issues with this. Like, especially with my work with my current deity, like, um, we consider like what's going to be ours after death and like what we've chosen to name and associate ourselves with and all of those things. Um, Now, forgive yourself for all of the things that um, the earth has done, like outside of your control. Like, relieve yourself of the responsibility to be in charge all the time. And, like, take moments um, to even consider the fact that time is so eternal that, like, the moment is the precious thing. Like, it's the thing that I work to establish. Like, I want to establish something that's a consistent flow, like a consistent time flow that doesn't coil and lock itself into a pattern of behavior that ends up like